Loaded Friday, trying to get you ready for the start of the NFL full slate and obviously college as well. I'll do an open on my NFL predictions, also recap Thursday night, a win by the Chiefs. We're going to do some of that with Marcus Spears and the turnover, also some college ball, what he likes out of the SEC early into the season. And let's try to get smarter at gambling. Chad Millman, the Action Network, a friend, a founder, somebody that's just smart about it. So we're just going to talk about how you can put together a plan this fall. The Alliance picks off of that and life advice. I want to start talking about last night's game, a win by the Chiefs at home in Kansas City to start the 24th season. I'm going to get to my conference championship picks, a couple other thoughts on playoff turnover, and just a lot of things here as you get ready for the season. And last night was great. Last night was just a reminder of like when this game is right, it is so much fun. And I thought it was it wasn't that it was just exciting at the very end. You look at those two teams and think, okay, these are two really good football teams. So I have some Chiefs thoughts, but I want to start with Baltimore and Lamar. Lamar checking in at 205. Faster, sure. If there was a guy that maybe didn't even need to be faster, it'd be him. I actually don't like it at 205. Taylor checking in. Well, I don't want to look. I'm just giving you the full scope of the coverage, but look, pretty good down the tunnel. Not complaining. So Lamar at 205 at 27 years old behind that offensive line, which struggled. I felt like last night. It's not like the aging big man in the NBA where you think, it'd be nice if he Duncan'd this. And as Duncan extended his career, a lot of it had to do with him just deciding to play at a lighter weight. So it's not even the same thing that we're talking about here, but I actually thought he looked really skinny and everybody's raving about it. But I'm looking at it going with his style of play, even though I'd say as far as like any of the dual threat guys or open field guys, it's not like he's getting clean shots all that often. And he did a really good job of getting down and everything else. I don't think he was great last night, but he was also the main reason that Baltimore got back in this game. And then, well, it wasn't going to be tying it up because once they got the likely touchdown that then was ruled that he was out of bounds, they were going to go for two. So who knows what happens. And Lamar at that point, 12-1-1 against the spread as an underdog. So if they had not even gotten the 2-point conversion, it would have been another cover for Lamar as a dog, which is an incredible number. So as you're sitting there watching the score come off, because you see Likely's foot just on the white, barely there. And by the way, Likely looks terrific. And you could see his development as a weapon at the end of last season with Andrews being down. And it looked like they were going to him even more than Andrews as that game was closing out. But let's go over some of the Lamar stuff from last night, because as you're sitting there watching the game, sometimes you'll notice stuff that you're not even looking for. Other times you're looking for it. Depends on how you watch, what your priorities are. But at one point I was just thinking, it's like, where are any of the throws down the field? And then as Chris Collinsworth told us as we finished up at the first half, maybe it was back at the very start of the second half, he had mentioned that the average depth of target was only 1 yard beyond the line of scrimmage. And watching the first half and the throws that either were available or the throws that Lamar didn't want to make, that was very evident. Because I just kept thinking, like, God, a lot of these throws are just out to the side the entire time. And with Zay Flowers in another season, you'd expect a little bit more of a deep threat. I think part of it is on that O-line. In the beginning of the game, when you're watching Lamar and Derrick Henry get it going and you're thinking, okay, this is something that teams are going to have to worry about in theory, because if they want to hand it off to Henry as you start to wear down the defense, and in the moment where Lamar just catches you cheating and then he keeps it, like that's a really dangerous thing. And maybe teams are going to have to load up on them in the box. And that means that some of those deep throws are going to be more available for them, which again, could very well happen this season, depending on what you think Henry is going to be for the long haul. But it didn't seem like Kansas City really worried about it other than the early part of the game. So when you watch the way Kansas City was aligned, and I didn't get to see any of it other than just some end zone replays, it looked like there weren't a lot of deep throws there, but they also at the same time were not super committed to stopping anything up front, because they seemed to just dismiss any of the Henry part of it because he was only 13 carries for 46 yards. Chris Jones also targeting specific offensive linemen throughout. Seth Walder, ESPN, does a really good job on some of these numbers after the fact. He had a really good number, and that Jones lined up on 42% of his snaps at the edge positions. In comparison, he was only 18% on the edge last season overall. But Lamar did miss some throws downfield. This isn't to now, again, another season in to relitigate who Lamar Jackson is as quarterback. The two MVPs, he's a top 5 guy at the position. But yeah, I felt like there was some stuff that was out there. But at the same time, with 16 carries for 122, he's the whole reason they were back in this thing at the end. Because, like, can you imagine, especially week one, and with the lack of preseason snaps that these guys have now, having to chase Lamar around in the fourth quarter? Like, even if you get pressure, you're not going to get to him. Like, he's going to step up. He's going to find a way around you. And you could just see the defenders, especially up front for Kansas City, they were just toast. Here's what I'd say about the Chiefs. In the year you should have gotten them, they won the Super Bowl. You should have gotten them last year. It's the worst Patrick Mahomes season of his career. Think about this. His rookie, really the first year he played, right? Because he had to start in the technical rookie year. But in the first full year as a starter, he threw 50 touchdowns on 580 attempts. Last year, he threw 27 touchdowns on 597 attempts. There was a lot that just didn't look to the standard of Mahomes, and yet the guy wins a back-to-back Super Bowl. You add in Xavier Worthy, who was so fast, it looked like Baltimore on that sweep, on that end around. He looked so fast that he almost looked like the handoff. He was there too quick. It almost looked a little clunky back there. And then once he took off, if you looked at the replay and the angles of pursuit, it was like, oh, wait, like we have no chance. Another year into his career from Rice, the screen game that is always going to be creative and always a pain in the ass. The Noah Gray catch to set up the Pacheco touchdown. If you look at that route or everything, the combination of everything they're doing in that play, Kelsey basically takes out two defenders just on his route to the end zone. So that's better than a block. And then Gray just kind of turns around and follows all the space, takes it right down to the goal line. I love that kind of stuff because they're easy, they're safe throws, and it makes sense with somebody like Kelsey. You've got somebody on the inside and somebody the outside corner on him because you can't just let him go one-on-one because he's going to find a way to body up and make the catch. And as you're watching all of this stuff happen and combining that with a defense that was the youngest in the league last year. And by the way, one of my favorite things from last night's game was, with the misdirection stuff with Lamar and the constant fear of him breaking one and getting outside, because it's still going to happen a couple times a game, but you're trying to limit it to 20 yards instead of like 60 yards. The pursuit, the support, the way the other defenders that weren't maybe on the primary side of where the ball was going, the amount of activity that I saw from all these Kansas City defenders, I just loved it. I loved it. And yet this group, the youngest unit on defense in the NFL, that's when you're supposed to get them, and they win a Super Bowl. So that's why I'm picking Kansas City to three-peat. It's boring as hell. I tried to do something different in college football in the face of Ohio State and Georgia and picking Oregon. But I just don't feel like doing it again. Unless Taylor at tackles, who's on pace now for 34 false starts, is going to just false start themselves out of the playoffs. He had 17 penalties last year, the most in the NFL for a player since 2015. So it's boring, but last year's the year they were supposed to not win the Super Bowl. And you add another year with this defensive seasoning, Mahomes having better weapons, likely not going to regress from what last year he was statistically. I can't come up with anything else. Last year I picked San Francisco over Buffalo. So it still feels a little chalky. Conference picks, I'm going Kansas City over Cincinnati. And in the NFC, I'm going Green Bay over Dallas. Why Green Bay? Well, if you look at them last year, depending on which metric you want to look at, there's a number that has them 23rd in defense, 27th on defense, and another one. The offense was 6th in both of the metrics that I was looking at. I don't know that it's just Jordan Love, but man, it has a lot to do with him. He was a completely different guy week 8 on. If you want to look at the close of the season, he finished 6-2. We know the receiver group is maybe without that headliner number one, but man, everyone seems to love this group, whether it's Watson, Dobbs, Wicks, the tight ends. It's the youngest team to win a playoff game since the NFL merger, so it feels like I'm buying this a little bit. The defensive line is stacked. They were 31st in interceptions last season, but they added Xavier McKinney. They have a new defensive coordinator. They're going to play single high safety. They spent a 2nd and 4th round pick on 2 safeties from big programs. So maybe I'm guilty of just defaulting to being better, but the camps, by all accounts, were really good back there from a group that didn't really provide a ton. They have one of the best corners in the league. So I'm kind of falling in love with the Packers, not just because of Jordan Love, but buying in the momentum of what we saw the second half of last season. We could both agree that I'm making a lot of assumptions here. If you want to pick somebody else, I can't even really tell you you're wrong, but I just didn't want to pick the 49ers again. So the exercise every year in trying to figure out the playoff field is replacing 6 teams with 6 new ones. I could do that and guess 1 through 14, but it would just be such a massive guess. I actually think it'd be a little pointless. But if we look at some of the things that we probably should pay more attention to in that turnover, I think there's some pretty simple rules to apply. We know that 6 quarterbacks went in the first 12 picks. History tells us that 3 are going to be gone from these teams in 3 years, which has to be so depressing. Like one of the fan bases listening to that right now that have one of those guys in the top 12, you're like, can you stop saying that? Just think your rookie's going to have like 360 yards in one of the games like 4 weeks in. You're like, nailed it. You got this guy for 10 years. And then he's on the practice squad somewhere else in 3 years. It's going to happen unless we just have an incredible outlier draft class where 5 of the 6 of the guys are terrific. Look, May's not playing right away. JJ's hurt. Penix is going to play it right away. So it's a little different than just all of a sudden 6 guys becoming the week 1 starters for the franchises. Or you could have not the outlier class. You could have the outlier class going the other way, the 2021 class, where 5 of the top 15 picks were quarterbacks, and 4 of those, other than Trevor Lawrence, are already on other teams. But I do think Caleb Williams is the guy. So if you're looking at the Houston model for turnover in the playoffs and for the Bears on the NFC side of this, I rarely am this free of worry for a rookie quarterback because when I've watched Caleb the last couple of years, I just marvel at his ability. And I said it, I think, with Booger where I went, he does the hard things easy already. And I'd rather start from there. I want to see 13, 14 picks from him. I don't want to see a clean. I mean, sure, it'd be great statistically if he throws 30 touchdowns and has 8 picks, but I'm not going to worry about it because I'd rather somebody raise their level of risk and make a few mistakes and start to figure out like, hey, that's covered in the NFL versus being covered in college and not lose his confidence throughout that process. Because I want to see a guy trusting his ability. Although Josh Allen, I remember talking with Chris Long, was like, eventually after I threw those 3 picks, I think in the first half against New England, he said, he's like, maybe I have to dial down the risk a little bit. So I think the Bears fit a profile here of one of those teams that could jump in. I know this is a bit of a trendy pick, but they were 7-10 last year. They had an average defense, but now you're adding an average defense that probably felt like, I feel like defensive units that can be good after like week 10, you're like, this just, they were kind of a different team, but there's some teams that I think start the year with a really good defense. And then the defense knows because of the quarterback play, they're so helpless that the defensive numbers don't even really match how good they can actually be. There's no way, even in a rookie year, I would think Caleb Williams is the net negative at quarterback the Bears have had the last couple of years. So maybe that's part of it, looking for that. Because the other element with Houston is if you look at them and you go, is it all just CJ? Is it an improving defense? Well, sometimes it's as simple as turnovers. And I cannot emphasize this point enough when you're trying to think about turnover in these close games and how do the bad teams stay in the game with the good team. But when you play 17 of these and you have between 12 and 15 possessions a game, and if you start to give the ball away 1.5 more times one year than the other year, or get the ball back 1.5 more times more per week than you did the previous year, like it completely changes the way we look at you as a team. A lot of times, unless you just have the most turnover-prone quarterback ever, a lot of times it could just be the luck of the bounces, and we can't figure out why we didn't see the 5-win team making the playoffs the next year. If you look at Houston, they were a -1 on turnover differential in 22. Last year, they were +10. And you throw it in with one of the most efficient rookie seasons we've seen in NFL history. Sometimes teams just figure it out. Detroit could be an example of that, everything coming together, or really more specifically with Detroit, it's a terrible defense goes to a slightly below average defense paired with a really good offense, a quarterback that is a guy that took a little bit longer than I ever thought it would, or I should say I didn't think it would work out because it was taking so long, and combining that with all of these great offensive weapons. You also have the hurt quarterback part of it, where you go, how did that happen? Well, let's review. Cincinnati goes from 12-4 with Burrow to 9-8 last year. Burrow barely playing 10 games, out of the playoffs. an aside, Cincinnati going 9-8 last year, considering what was happening with Burrow, was probably one of the best coaching jobs we had in the league last year. But they're out of the playoffs, so nobody really cares. Then sometimes your division is just awful. Like, was Tampa this sneaky team last year? Or did they go 8-9 in an awful division? So that ends up having probably more to do with the turnover than it is everyone just completely misjudging who a team is. Tell me what your turnover differential was from one year to the next. Tell me what happened with your starting quarterback. Tell me who your division was. Or in the case of Detroit, one of the favorites in the NFC, maybe it's just growing at the right time. But I'm going to try to get in front of it with Green Bay. Final note, because I like to update everyone on this. Quarterback captains have been named. And the media loves when a rookie quarterback is named a captain. Because then the media will be like, well, it's a team vote, man. This guy, locker room already respects him. Or the coach is like, you have to make the quarterback one of the captains because if you don't, it looks terrible. Let me get some Connor Cook stuff. Does Connor work? So let's run through it. 32 teams, 27 quarterbacks are captains. Well, wait a minute. What about the other 5? Hold on. 4 teams name captains every week. So that means like Lamar Jackson's probably a captain a lot. I imagine Jordan Love of Green Bay will be a captain a lot. Seattle's doing it weekly. I don't know if that's a Baltimore thing with McDonald there. Carry over. I'm going to do it like Harbaugh did. Washington also does it weekly, apparently, unless some of this information is outdated. The one that's left out, the Raiders, who on Wikipedia have Jimmy Garoppolo named as one of their captains. I don't think that's going to happen. So what we're really looking at here is 28 of the 28 teams that name captains for the season all have quarterbacks as captains. The Bears have 8 captains. So is it because Caleb Williams already owns the room? Does Bo Nix own the room? Like Will Levis is a captain. It's because you have to make your quarterback the captain. So I'm not trying to dump on all the new guys here, but next time you see a tweet from somebody saying someone has been named captain, it means nothing. We got Marcus Spears, NFL Live, ESPN, and he has a big announcement as well. Swagoo, the podcast, now out Wednesdays and Fridays. What's up, man? It's good to see you.
You too, brother. Good to see you, man. It looked good in that background. It's the water behind you.
It is.
Oh, my God, bro.
You know, I got to get the blinds back up again. But, you know how it is. Like, sometimes you'll just do something like, why has that been this way in the house for 6 months? Like,
no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Maybe once we get through week 1, we'll open that back up again. Look, I want to talk some college at some point. Let's not make the mistake of ignoring any of that. But I do want to start with some of the NFL stuff that I opened the show with. And that's just always trying to figure out that turnover. Now, it's going back through your career. You really only had the one down year there with Dallas in 2010. When you go from an 11-5 to a 6-10 team, do you feel it in August, or is it the randomness? Like, it's very specific to the team, so everybody has a different story for falling off a bit. But what do you remember about the expectations and then realizing, like, we're not the same group?
Well, we got really young, man. We got really young after that 11-5 year. I think that was the year T.O. left. We had some offensive linemen that were either traded away or went to other teams. So the personality of the team changed. The veteran presence of the team, meaning, with Wade Phillips, man, you are responsible for being a man and taking care of your business more than when I came from Bill Parcells, when, they want to know every minute of the day what you're doing and where you're at, how you're working out, who you with. Wade was more of a, when we in this building, we locked in on football. And when you leave, it's about your family. And And I think we had a lot of veteran guys that knew how to manage that time. And then the following year, that 6-10 year, we got young, man. Head coaching change. I think that was the mid-season change or early in the season to Jason Garrett. Like, it was just a lot. It was a lot of newness and a lot of difference in that team. So I think that was more about change and not having the same team and personality.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's probably Cowboys fans going, why not remind everybody that Romo missed games too?
Yeah,
which is obviously maybe the simplest answer of the whole thing. I just was wondering, because we sit here every year through the summer trying to figure out, like, all right, who's in that's out and who's out that's going to be in. Did you have a Super Bowl pick already for NFL Live?
Yeah, Chiefs.
Okay.
I mean,
right. I couldn't be more aligned. I don't know how you argue anyone else unless you just want to pick somebody else, which is totally fine because this doesn't happen.
And you know what we got to stop doing, man? We got to stop for the sake of now. Here's the caveat. Would I love a different alternative? Probably. It would probably be more exciting, right? To get down to the end. But again, I don't know how more exciting it'll be than a team potentially three-peating. I don't know how more exciting it'll be to see Patrick Mahomes Magic in the playoffs once again. Like, when we looking at those 3-hour window games in the playoffs, as much as, you know, other teams hate the Chiefs and where they are right now, we want to see Patrick Mahomes in big games. Like, that's giving us Jordan-esque feel. That's giving us the times that we talk about other leagues back in the day when I was there and I was watching, and you should have seen Mahomes in that era, right? Like, so, you know, we got this thing in media RR that we want to move on to the next thing so quick after we had enough of that. Let's move on to the next thing. And I liken it a lot to basketball. Man, Steph Curry is still hitting threes. You know, LeBron James still dominating games, being a point forward. Kevin Durant's still one of the most prolific scorers we've ever seen. That doesn't take away from the newness of Anthony Edwards or the newness of Luka Doncic. That doesn't take away from it, but we got to just be careful sometimes of moving on. So I took the Chiefs because, one, I think they're a better team than last year. If you were going to get them, it was last year to get them. And we saw a little bit last night. That wasn't even a clean game by them. And I think Baltimore may be the second best team in the league.
Who'd you have out of the NFC?
Eagles.
Okay, so that's going against it a little bit because people talk about them like they won 4 games last year.
I'm nervous as hell, but it's the Eagles, right? Like, I think it was more about their, obviously we throw this term around, culture. I got Jason this year on Monday Night Countdown, Kelsey. And I haven't really dug deep into it, but we in Philly week 2, and I'm going to ask him what the hell happened. It was definitely not about skill set or talent, because we saw him win 11 games still. It was more of, are y'all interested? Like, you know, it's something happening Monday through Saturday that's causing you guys to not perform on Sunday like we have grown accustomed to the past 2 years. So tonight is going to be a big litmus test for that as well. But more importantly, man, like, we forget, dude. First of all, I don't know if anybody has been as good as Howie Roseman in bringing talent. With the 2 new corners in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, that's a really good draft. You obviously go get Saquon Barkley in free agency. I don't know what the hell the Giants was thinking. And Jalen Hurts should be. You got, and then too, these coordinator changes to me are huge. Vic Fangio already has a system in the way that he does things. Oh, they also brought in Devin White, who is, I know, out for this game. High level linebacker in this league. Fell out of favor in Tampa. I don't know why, but played at a high level. He's a Super Bowl champion already. This team is littered with talent. It's about putting them in the right position to be successful. And then too, we heard some of the problems that Sirianni and Jalen had communication wise and philosophically about what they wanted to do. So hopefully they got that fixed and rectified.
You'd mentioned Parcells earlier. We were talking Cowboys, and I think it plays into some of the culture stuff you're talking here. But I have to ask, as one of the rare guys that played for Saban when he won a national title and played for Parcells, I don't want to hear about how they're the same. I want to hear about how they're different. And maybe you got Nick, when it's 20 years ago, it's probably a little different version of Nick than the one we just unfortunately saw leave college football. But give me something that would say, hey, this is actually something that's different about the two that you might not know.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people learning about Nick now. Nick is a dude, bro. Like, very robotic when he was coaching. Didn't want to misspeak much. Played the game perfectly, right? Outside of being the greatest college football coach to ever live, in my opinion. But he played the media perfectly. It never was a soundbite given that was negative, or it was always poignant, and you could take something away from it. In real life, drink beer, chill, like hip, understands the culture on both sides. His wife, Miss Terry, they like teenagers. They like in love, bro. It's sickening. I think that's more of what people don't know about Nick. They'll get to see it on game day. He already gave a little bit of a tidbit and a nugget. With Bill, it was always more guarded, privately as well. I don't think Bill did much outside of football. Like, both of these guys devoted their life to football. I don't think Bill paid attention to much more outside of football. other than boxing in the same gym with LL Cool J. But no, man, I think the personalities are completely different. Coaching styles, very similar. Bill seemed, and too, like, I gotta preface it by saying Nick was dealing with 17 through 19, right? Bill had rosters of 20 through 35. Bill actually, as he got older, and I had him in Dallas, I think he, foundationally, football-wise, I think he's the reason why I was able to be a pro for so long. But I think he refused to adapt to the new athlete. And man, it happens. Like, you have principles and you have a foundation of the way you do things, and you've had success doing it, so you don't think you ever deviate away from that. But could you imagine Bill Parcells in a locker room while somebody on IG Live?
No.
Saban dealt with that and was able to, because he had to connect with a younger audience, but as far as his team, but I think it was more about Bill was just a football guy, man.
Yeah, look, you played for Nick. I was lucky enough to interview him a million times.
Yeah.
And get some time with him all the years at ESPN and everything. And I just would always hear, like, oh, he's just like Belichick. And Belichick, I was like, no, they're not. I was like, they're not. And, it's rare. But when Saban would let you in, and, the adaption part of it, too, is what I love. Because I remember when everything was changing really quickly with the way offenses were being run and the way the clock was running. And I remember Nick giving that press conference, just basically warning everybody to be like, is this what you want it to be? Like, is this what you want football to be? Like, okay. And somebody else with his resume at his age is far less likely than him to say, okay, fine, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Fine, we'll do it. We'll do it. And I'm going to keep winning.
And then he hired Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. Who ran a great offense. And probably Nick couldn't get him out of there quick enough.
Couldn't get him out of there fast enough. Yeah.
Hey, this is a good transition then, because, as everybody knows, as an LSU guy, I have the hardest time with the rookie quarterbacks. And Jaden's a little bit like Burrow. Burrow's first year at LSU, it was okay. There's some stability at the position.
Yep.
And then it's being the quarterback of one of the greatest runs we've ever seen for a single season in college football history. Very similar to what Jaden did from his first year in Baton Rouge to what we saw last year. I mean, that was a leap that I didn't expect, the same way I didn't expect from Burrow. What do you expect from him in his rookie season?
I think Jaden is going to be phenomenal. And the reason why we're starting to see this, Ryan, a lot is you remember, and you did it for a long time covering it, you remember when that jump from the NFL in the type of play was so drastically different than college?
Yeah.
And quarterbacks had to no 3 and 5 step drops. They played from under center so much. It was still a run heavy league. So a lot of it was play action. Dudes wasn't this big and physical and fast, right? Well, big, but not this fast and physical and more space. The game now is basketball on grass. We saw last night, like it is quick hitters, it's quarterbacks being athletic and mobile, it's having a really good deep ball when you want to push the ball down the field. But the game is being played within the pocket technically, but it's not. Like when I played against Peyton and Tom and Breeze, I knew where they were going to be. They just were so quick with getting the ball out and understanding coverage and moving the chains methodically. Bro, these dudes explosive now. Like these dudes have a 3rd and 15 and they pick up 40 yards without throwing the ball. So I think his game just translates. One thing that a lot of people don't give Burrow enough credit for, Burrow is an athletic quarterback, bro. Like, so when
my people have been trying to say it.
I'm telling you, man, when you look across the league, I saw Joe make so many plays with his legs. We talk about that 2019 season, and because Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and so many good players were on that team, bro, I don't know if people realize how many clutch plays Joe made with his legs that year to win games and extend plays. But that's these quarterbacks are coming in now with all recall. It's all recall. It's all like, oh, I know that coverage. I played out the shotgun. I know this type of athlete. I know the space that's going to be created before we even snap the ball. And last but not least, I'm faster than you. So I think it's going to translate.
Yeah, I was watching, and I don't know if you as a former defensive lineman had the same level of sympathy I had for the Chiefs pass rush on those last couple drives. But like, look, Chris Jones, now that Donald's gone, there's not much of a conversation about the interior guy, even though he was lining up on the edge quite a bit last night for him. It was just, you could just see like laid out of his stance. And I'm not even talking about and then to add in, hey, you're tired. Hey, it's the Thursday game. It's week 1. You can think your conditioning is good. It's not. And now even when you think, like even when you're fresh and you think you have an angle on Lamar, you don't have it. Like I saw guys going, let me just make it look like I got some penetration.
Yep.
And then, hopefully these linebackers clean this stuff up.
Bro,
and
you hoping you can funnel. Or you hoping you get lucky and he makes a mistake. It's the same thing with Pat, though. Like, I hate to be the Grinch. It's so hard to play defense now, man. Like, and I know people hate when we say it. It's like last night, for example, I think Jawan Taylor was false start. I think he false started 14 times in the game. And I
can't figure. By the way, I watch it so much now because of how absurd it was last year that I look for it. They let him lean back.
Dude,
it's almost like they feel bad.
He starts before the ball moves. He doesn't take his kick step before the ball moves. He starts leaning before the ball. When I was in the NFL, as soon as we saw that hitch, it was time to go. They would call us offsides. DeMarcus Ware would never be able to rush the pass against him. Um,
I love Taylor on one of the false starts where he patted his chest like, hey, that's on me. We're like, no kidding.
no kidding, bro. Like the one that they caught you, right? But I think it's just so difficult, man, because one, the rules, obviously, but you also deal with so much space. I sound so old, but I mean, it was 24. I've been out of the league 10 years now, 11 years.
I think you sound like a defensive player before you sound old, to your credit.
I mean, we played in a phone booth, bro. Like, I enjoyed playing games like games Derrick Henry played. Like, where it's like you man to man, you win your block, you defeat your block, you make a tackle. Dude, we got reverses with dudes running 4.2s. We got receivers like Tyreek Hill who runs a 3.9 40 and you can't touch him after 5 yards. Like, bro, that's damn near impossible to deal with. So I think a lot of it is more exciting. I mean, obviously it's more exciting. The game is at an all-time high with viewership and people that's interested in the game, more relatable because points are relatable. But I just think now with the talent of these guys coupled with how you have to play, it's difficult, man.
I want to pivot this into some college ball just because you know how much we both love talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a title game pick? Did you have to actually do an official one? So I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I'm sure you have some thoughts. Georgia over
Georgia. I could see Texas and Sark getting there. I like their defensive line a lot, I think.
Even with the losses to the NFL, you still like their D-line?
Yeah, I still like their D-line. I think he's recruited well over there. I still don't root out Michigan. This will be a great test this week. Ohio State, obviously, with the talent that they have. I mean, the usual suspects. A dark horse for me, listen, man, I know they beat us. I think USC is good.
Okay, so I was at the game, and I left the stadium going, I think both these teams are good.
Yeah. Now, and we get 12, right? We get 12 of them in there.
Yeah. And, on the LSU side, if we want to start there, like, I didn't really have a lot of concerns with Nussmeier. From everything you had heard, I was like, I think he's going to be good. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman like these guys. Yeah. You could see that Lacey last year was going to be a stud once the other guys were gone. So even though you lose two first rounders, we know the offensive line. It is weird, though, when you think about LSU and you're like, okay, with this line and then Caleb at running back, even though Emory, the bad news there, you're like, how come they can't just churn out these short yardage things? Like what why is that not in their DNA anymore? Because it was funny because I was talking with some LSU fans and one guy said, like, to ever think, like, even when we weren't good, we knew we'd have a great defensive line and we'd be able to run the football. And now I think the corners still could be a bit of an issue, but it may actually be like, I didn't leave there going, oh, LSU is screwed. I'm with you. I thought it was a testament to Moss, a quarterback, all their playmakers, their defense, stepping up when they needed to. I was impressed. I was impressed with them, but I'm not writing off.
I was impressed too. I was, obviously I'm going to be more critical of LSU, but I was impressed with USC, especially the playmakers.
They got the ball out to everybody, man.
Everybody. We saw the balls being spread around, Hudson making phenomenal catches, clutch catch at the end of the game. Moss put it right it was a cover 2. He put it right in the hole between the safety and the corner. USC made more plays, man. That's what it boiled down to. And then, too, we had our cornerback play for a school that has been known to have dudes, like top 5 dudes at those positions. It feels like we have regressed. They'll get better, but the pass interferences were devastating. But again, I thought it was 2 good football teams playing against each other. And I think that's going to be a lot of college football this year. Outside of the top, the Georgias and the Texas, and Bama probably still going to be in that conversation. I'm super interested in that situation. But yeah,
Hey,
Dabo not going to be in the conversation.
Oh yeah, so you're already done with Clemson,
bro.
That sounds like a defiant bro.
We need to have a conversation. I feel bad for Dabo. Let me say that. You just talked about when we were talking about Saban the ability to evolve,
right?
And you have principles, and you have a foundation as a head coach. You have this belief system that things should be done a certain way, but that's over. It's over in the way he thinks that you can build a football team. It may come back based on NCAA rules or whatever agreements that people make, but you're not taking a freshman and grooming him until he's a sophomore, junior, and winning championships like that. You're not. And I think because of the precedent that Dabo set at Clemson by moving them into the national conversation consistently, it's more pressure for him because we think of that program as a certain way. Can you be solid and win some games? Yeah, absolutely. But he set a precedent of championships. And talent-wise, I don't see it, bro.
I know it was Chattanooga, and Tennessee just put a huge, huge number up on them. And, when we talk about Nico Iamaleava, it's this conversation that started with an NIL deal, and then we get to see the bowl game. But, man, if there was ever like, hey, who looks like he's playing 7-on-7 on Saturdays, he is the poster child for it. I mean, again, it's not great competition, but my God, watching the highlights from that game from Nico were just absurd. And it makes me think, Tennessee's in the conversation.
Yeah, we can take some. Tennessee is in the conversation. And we can take, look, man, I always say this. You're supposed to look good against teams that are inferior, right? We deal with that in college where you know that they don't have the talent that's close or whatever. Tennessee did what they were supposed to do. And that's always you can make a case for, well, it's a different set of DBs, it's a different D-line. All of that matters, absolutely. But certain things translate. Like how beautiful the ball is coming out of his hand, the timing in which they play with, the fact that he's in a hypo offense, those things translate. I'm interested to see them. And then, too, as the season goes along, Ole Miss as well. Ole Miss, high-powered, explosive. Lane, obviously, one of the best minds in offensive football. College is in a good place because college, you almost can't tell the difference in college and pros now.
Yeah, and I think that speaks a lot to some of the stuff you were talking about, especially watching last night's game. Like, why not make it easier for these quarterbacks, even though the hit rate still isn't there yet? Okay, last thing before we let you go. I don't want to get the message boards on fire here, but what is it like when your son is being recruited? He's a top recruit in basketball. I think I saw the offer from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I'd imagine, with your Texas history, but also a son of Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
Like, how much does it suck for the recruiters to have to recruit somebody who is the son of somebody like you?
and his mom, my wife.
Right. I'm sorry. I don't want to leave her off the resume.
I just, it's tough. We sift through the bullshit. And two, like it's a new era of recruiting. There's money involved. There's cars involved.
Okay, has anyone ever said because you've done well in your career, maybe your son doesn't need enough?
No.
Because I imagine, well, I don't know. Hey, look, you never know.
Listen, no, okay. I'm telling you. So it's funny because, my son is 15, 6'8", right? Really good basketball player. My wife was the 7th overall pick in the WNBA. I played in the NFL. I was a high-level basketball player coming out of high school as well. He is so much more talented than we were at our age. And obviously, we wasn't 6'8". But the way that college basketball is now.
But is your wife as tall as you are?
No, she's 6'2". I'm 6'5".
All right. Sorry. I didn't want to.
No,
some of these pictures here, maybe they're heels. Yeah,
in her heels, in her heels, I feel weird. Because we eye to eye. But again, but my oldest daughter, we've dealt with her being the number one volleyball player in the country for the last 3 years. And she's going to Texas to play volleyball. So for him, it's just a different animal because it's agents and shoe people, and like he just got invited to USA Junior National mini camps, which gets you in the USA system. It gets like NBA scouts to be at. He's going to a camp. John Lucas, I'm sure right. You know who John Lucas is, but John Lucas putting on a big camp in Houston where it'd be NBA scouts. Like it's a whirlwind of things that's happening super fast. Paul Biancardi just ranked him 20th in the country on ESPN ranking. He's 9th in the country on Rivals ranking. So they are, you know how it goes, man. Like these kids are now being followed every day. They coaches showing up to practice. And being 15, it's a lot to manage. Difference is, again, 2 parents that were pros, a sister that went through a crazy recruiting situation, and now he's in the middle of it, and he has some time left. But the thing about the kid, man, he just wants to hoop. He's a really good student. All he want to do is hoop, eat, and chill. And he works his ass off, which me and his mama tells him all the time. Like it don't matter what you doing if you ain't working.
Well, little did your wife know that when she transferred to LSU, you guys would be starting a Spears athlete factory, a couple decades later. So
actually, it is on her. Like my girlfriend prior to her was short. And when she first saw her, she was like, I saved your life. So I call all 3. My 11-year-old, my 11-year-old daughter is the best athlete out of the older 2. She's a volleyball player as well, but they my little insurance policies.
Well, it looks like the premiums a little bit lower than maybe for you than everybody else. And look, you and Aisha should be incredibly proud too, man.
Yeah, we have it, man. We're proud of them, man.
Well, look, you check out Swagoo, his podcast, Wednesdays, Fridays, just launch, and every day on NFL Live. Thanks, Mark.
Yes, sir. You gonna come on before we go? You gonna come
whatever
on the
you
podcast?
Need. Whatever you need. Brother. You know you're my guy.
Deal. All right. Much love, man. Enjoy that sunshine and them waves and them seagulls and shit howling back there.
If you make it out to LA for one of the Monday nighters, you let me know. Right down the street.
How many rooms you got in there?
We got one for you. Not as many as you think. We try to maximize the entertainment.
Entertainment space? All right, yeah. That kitchen looks very nice back there. Ain't no cooking going on.
We'll get some of that fish fry going over here.
I got you. I'm going to see you some of your way. All right, man. Y'all take care, bro.
Chad Millman is an enjoyable guest, and I consider him a bit of a friend. And he joins us now. And this all goes back to an origin conversation of a couple months ago where I said, Chad, this gambling thing is really tough. And I dabbled when I was younger quite a bit, and luckily never got too bad. But now that I'm doing it constantly, I would like to get better at it. And I would like the audience to become more informed. So Chad Millman, who's the Chief Content Officer of the Action Network, also a co-founder, joins us now. And I guess jump in wherever you want. The call, I think, was earlier this summer. And I said, I want to come up with a 3-way look at NFL standings. We still already do the Alliance for college football. So I wanted to put together like My gut reaction from watching a million games, which is probably the worst way to go. There's some public money fading stuff that we can explore. And then I don't want to call it the sharp money because I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to have access to all of this great information. But maybe put together 3 picks like that every single week, keep a standing of it, and then have Chad kind of check in with us throughout the season a couple times if he's willing to in his busy schedule. So that's how the conversation started. And here we are before week 1 of the NFL season. So what's up?
How you doing, brother? Listen, I'm excited to do it. I love checking in with you. I'm excited to have the conversation. You tend to think about this in a way that is different than I think a lot of people in media who are taking in sports betting think about it. There's a handful of people who want to think about it more deeply than here's the winner, here's the loser. You're trying to get better at it. Our good friend Colin Cowherd does the same thing, trying to take the knowledge in and figure out how you can put it out, because it is not easy. It is super hard. And a couple of things you mentioned off the top, where is the public money? Who is the sharp money? Those things are good sort of tentpoles, but they are also rapidly changing because so many more people are in sports betting. So it's not as simple as fade the public, bet with the sharps. It's getting harder.
So it's getting harder is what you're like. I know that people can go over historical points of the gambling timeline and say they hadn't adjusted for this yet, right? This was a market that wasn't quite discovered. And once it is discovered and it's working, it's like you don't want to tell anybody on top of everything else. Your history with trying to pick the right side, what's the briefest way you can share that with the audience?
Well, my history with trying to pick the right side started with, I don't know anything about picking the right side. And I was mostly interested in listen, you and I have done segments together for a long time, going back to ESPN. And we have talked about how you could critique when I was the editor-in-chief of the magazine and I'd come on with you and Scott on ESPN.
Sorry.
And you could come after me for lines in a story that you would only know were kind of crap lines if you were in the middle of editing the story or reading really closely. So I say that to set up that I wasn't getting into sports betting to try to figure out the right side. I got into it because I like the characters. I like the psychology. I like the fact that there is this massive industry that was affecting all of our fandom. And at the time, nobody was really talking about. And so I ended up writing this book called The Odds 20-something years ago, where I was tracking these guys who bet on sports for a living and these bookmakers in Vegas. And that's really how I got into it. And what was fascinating to me, other than the narrative, which was great for these guys, but also the decisions that were being made by the professional bettors that completely went against what you would consider to be sort of the defined logic of a fan. And so that's where it started to spin for me. Okay, the public money is the opposite of where you want to be. You want to be tracking how the lines are moving in relation to where that money is going, where those preponderance of betting tickets are. And to me, that emerged into sort of a theme where I could try to thread the needle on what was really interesting and fascinating. Ultimately, that is what led to doing more and more of ESPN, and then leaving ESPN to work with a company called the Turner Group to launch Action, which we did about 6 years ago.
Right. And you hit it at the perfect time,
Yes.
which I think was some really smart people that already had a background in the world going, okay, this stuff is going to explode and there's going to be all sorts of opportunity. And you were ahead of the market on it. All right. So the reason why I do love the Action Network and I check in on it every week when I'm trying to put together these picks, and this goes back to when Vin Pelt and I were doing the show together. He obviously is super into it. He was in it at a time where there was still stigma around it. I remember him giving out a side, I think on Sports Center, and they called him into the principal's office. Be like, you're not supposed to do that. Look, it's just the way the world was. And now everybody doesn't care anymore because of the money that's involved. So when he would give out his strategies, which was essentially fading the public, and it worked. He won more than he lost. I sat there every week next to him for those 6 years. He was terrific at it. For somebody having to give out picks on a show, the irony of it was that every time he gave out those picks, it would be the worst team. It would be the worst number. Like if Arizona was terrible and you're thinking, okay, well, they have to be like an 8-point dog here. It'd be the stinkiest version of the number. So it'd be 6.5. And you're thinking like, how can that happen? And we didn't have access to all the public money part of it. So when I look at like the public money bets for week 1 in the NFL, it looks like the biggest public play right now is the Steelers plus 3.5 at Atlanta with 71% of the money coming in. if you don't know, like, and as somebody who watches a lot, knowing how hard it is going, if I'm going to keep track of the supposed sharp info I may or may not be able to get my hands on, fading the public, like I'm coming in third. I'm probably going to come in third here. But what happened with the public money last year if you took that stretch?
If you went with the public last year, you were a winner. It was the first time Action Network has a database that tracks literally millions of points of data for betting across a wide array from systems, how do teams do when they are 3-point favorites on the road, coming off a loss, playing against a team that won, all that kind of stuff. But we've also just been tracking in general, how does the public do? Going back to 2003, we've never seen a year where the public won at 53% or more. 53%, for those who don't know, you got to pay a commission, what's called the VIG, on any kind of bet. Normally it's minus 110. Normally it's a 10% commission. You want to win $100 on your bet, you got to bet $110 and hope that you win, right? So over the course of a season, you have to win 53% of the time in order to reap a profit. Last year, the public won 53% of the time. If you bet with the public $100, you would have won $1,000. That's essentially what that is saying. That's never happened before, Ryan. And what that is indicative of is, say, the last 6 years, and this has been a pretty common theme in the sports betting community. The last 6 years, since it became legal, there are so many more bettors in the market, and there are so many more what we call outs, right? You can bet at DraftKings, you can bet at FanDuel, you can bet at BetMGM, you bet in Vegas, and like it is becoming easier for people to put money into the market and get better at this. There is a democratization of data. You have access to so much more information that makes you feel smarter, and more people giving it out, like Action and you and everyone at the Ringer. And so,
And FanDuel.
And FanDuel, right. So exactly. So it's become a little bit easier to be smart and sharp, which means professional bettors have to adjust. Last year, the public won. What will be interesting this year is there a regression? There's always a regression in betting. So all of a sudden, will it go back to the days where betting against the public is the way to go?
Okay. And I cannot emphasize this enough in me trying to figure out, like, hey, see, I feel like I'm overstating it. And in the gambling world, it'd be like, you hear the guys trying to like give out a pick, the right side, the unpopular thing on Friday. So I cannot emphasize how much I'm not trying to oversell that part of it. I was just trying to figure out a way to be like, every now and then you'd hear from somebody in Vegas, they'd be like, yeah, a bunch of guys came in on the Lions this week, like back when the Lions wasn't the popular play in the NFC like they are this year. What do you have anything in your world that's like, this is actually what the smarter guys are doing, whether it's a week one pick or it's a season long total?
Well, for the week one picks, I got a whole litany of picks, right? But one of the things that we look at now, and you and I have talked about this, the factor of luck in these games, randomness in these games, just can't be discounted. And that is something that we have been trying to collect, say, the last 2 or 3 years in something that we call the luck rankings, right? And it basically takes all these random factors and tries to account for what would the winning percentage expectation be for a particular team in a game if you had eliminated these luck factors, if you're just taking the baseline stats, right? And the flip side is, what should their expectation for losing have been if they hadn't gotten lucky? So we've been collecting this data for the past 3 or 4 years. We have a couple of brilliant data analysts who look at this stuff. And what's fascinating, and this has become a real sort of anchor for us, is to look at these to try to find the signal in the noise, for lack of a better term, and determine which teams are lucky and how do you bet on that regression for them, and which teams have been unlucky and how do you find value in the market. And what you're seeing is that there's actually as much value in that as there is in sort of trying to glean the psychological state of public bettors and how they feel about the Cowboys this week.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it. And I even touched on it too when I talked about replacing the traditional 6 teams in the playoffs every single year. And, once we have the results, we're great with answers. We're like, oh, coaching and the culture. And there was a grit to this team and there was all these things. And you'll just go, like, I don't know, their turnover differential was better. I know
That's
a lot
kind
of
of it.
times, yeah, and that's kind of it. Cause like sometimes the one score game thing can be your answer. I love it when it's a team that has 6 wins the previous year. They come into camp and they're like, we had like 8 one-score games. You're like, by the way, the entire league has like half of their schedule is one-score games. So it's super easy to say in front of the local media horde because you're not really thinking of it. It's like the bigger picture of like, wait, isn't the whole reason why Sunday is so successful is because some of these games, even with teams that seem like they're not a match for each other, it ends up coming down to this last second field goal attempt. Like, how did that happen again? Well, usually it happens again because of turnovers, but the luck part of it, I think sometimes the one-score games can be dismissed. Like, okay, this team, we don't think they're going to be as good this year because they won all these one-score games. But sometimes it's a bit like the great closer in baseball where there's so much randomness except for the elite of the elites. And if it's a really good quarterback, I think that has more to do with it than some of the randomness. So when you're looking at your luck rankings and trying to go through like, okay, this team was extremely unlucky. Is there anything else that's baked into this that is helpful for us to understand?
Well, look, it's all based on conversions of particular downs and turnovers and calls. It's all the things that you look at in a game that make up sort of the scary moments that cost you a bet or win you a bet, right? There's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different factors. But if you look at last year, like you're talking about one-score games, right? The Carolina Panthers last year, if you account for luck and sort of the expectation for them to have won a game, they probably should have won a game and a half to 2 more games than they did. Their season win total this year started at 4.5. Slowly but surely throughout the offseason, that line moved up to 5. It moved up to 5.5 because professional bettors were way ahead of the market in seeing that, wait a second, this team had some really bad luck last year. And if they can get a little bit better, again, none of this happens in a vacuum. If it's a bad team, you kind of make your own bad luck. But if it's a really unlucky team and they then layer on some improvements, the public perception for that team is still going to be terrible. Right now, if you look at the odds for worst record in the NFL, the shortest odds are the Panthers, the Patriots, the Titans, the Giants. All of those teams could conceivably be better, but they had such bad perception last year that they are, of course, going to be the teams that have the lowest odds to have the worst record in the NFL. The Panthers, they got better coaches. They vastly improved their offensive line. They vastly improved their receiving core. You have to believe Dave Canales, when he was in Seattle, Geno Smith went from journeyman quarterback to Pro Bowler. When he was in Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield went from journeyman quarterback to leading the Bucs to the playoffs. If Bryce Young is only a little bit better, with a better offensive line, better receivers, and better coach, this team all of a sudden exceeds its win total significantly. So that's why when you take luck into consideration with all these other factors, you get a lot of people looking at the Panthers and saying, there's a lot of value there.
Yeah, I know that I've started years where I went, okay, who has the lowest win total? And then with the randomness of the NFL, I was like, maybe you're just better off taking the 3 lowest totals and just playing the season long over on all 3 of those, knowing that it's still kind of hard to lose 3 out of every 4 games in the league because of some of the randomness. So you're telling me that Carolina over 5.5 wins is something smarter people seem to be on?
100%. Carolina over 5.5 wins. And, heading into week 1, I know people might hear this after, but heading into week 1, Carolina on the road at the Saints, professional bettors have been betting that, right? That line was 4.5. As of Friday, when we're recording this, it's down to 4. And you combine a lot of the luck factors along with how the rosters have developed, what people perceive as a coaching advantage for the Panthers. all of a sudden you start to build a narrative that makes you think, oh, this could be good. But again, it goes back to what you said in the beginning. A lot of betting, it's just gross. Like I'm in a a couple different survivor pools, and one of my team names in a survivor pool is literally just gross. Like I know there's going to be times where I am sick to my stomach because I'm going to be making really disgusting picks. I know that like we're telling the listeners of my podcast, the favorites, that in week 1, yeah, we're going to be on the Giants. We're going to be on the Panthers. We're going to be on the Colts as home underdogs against the Texans. And there's good reasons for that, but it doesn't make anyone comfortable.
Okay, let's dig into the number here. And I'm bringing up FanDuel with some of the odds where, okay, 62% of the public money is on the Rams plus 4.5 at Detroit. So, and I believe it opened at the Rams at 3.5.
So
I may like the
you?
Rams. Okay, right. So I may like the Rams before I see the number. Like momentum, McVay always seems to figure it out. You know, everybody's coming in healthy, which is a huge part of the Rams deal. Detroit has all of these expectations. A lot of people's pick to get out of the NFC. Like, what an incredible story that would be. I think I'd be more inclined to bet the Rams if we're plus 2.5. But when I see it at plus 4.5, knowing that everybody's like, hey, the Rams are pretty good. Like, I'm getting more than a field goal. And so I'm like, now it scares me. So even though the side that I would like, maybe my first reaction, seeing the number be bigger than I would expect it to be, then makes me scared of even picking the game. Why does that happen?
Why are you scared? Or why does the line go up like that?
No,
I can tell you.
You understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I know why you're scared is because you're a thoughtful person who is wrestling with the nationwide impact of sports betting's influence on the media we create and how you can communicate that to your fans, right?
Hey, look, and I've never tried to pretend anything, okay? Like, we make more money now because of it. Okay.
Of course.
And that's the reality of what the business is. And I'm not going to pretend that isn't a huge motivation. But as I've done it now the last couple of years with FanDuel, I'm like, well, is there any way I can try to get better at it? Is there any way I can make the audience understand it a little bit better if we can be doing this all the time? And that's essentially what we're trying to do here.
You're scared in this particular instance, forgetting about the existential psychoanalysis, is the line opened at 3.5. It is now at 4.5. Yet you're seeing all the public money, the betting percentages, the tickets coming in on the Rams. And so one of the sort of nuances as people look at this, where they look at FanDuel, we have it on Action too, is you can see the betting percentages. That is the total volume of tickets that are coming in. That usually represents what the public is doing. And then you can see the money percentages. Money percentages are usually representative of what the professional bettors are doing. And oftentimes there will be a split. And so with this game, you are somewhat concerned because you're seeing a lot of the tickets come in on the Rams, and yet the line has moved from 3.5 to 4.5 because professional bettors are coming in on the lines. And so that is what's concerning you, because you probably would want to take the Lions, except now the line is so big, you've actually lost value. And there is an old axiom in betting that professionals use. You want to get the best of the number, right? And so if the line has gone from 3.5 to 4.5, there is value lost. It's like buying a stock. You're just not going to make as much money or have as good of a chance to win or profit in the long term if you're not getting the best of the number.
Staying with the Panthers here, I think you see the opening week and you go, okay, the Saints aren't great. Maybe the defense is getting even older, which technically it is. But it can't be as bad at Carolina. And then you see it not be, minus 6.5. It's -4. And you're like, that number is just really weird for all the expectations. That means the smarter people are looking at this game differently than just your gut reaction of like, oh, of course, New Orleans is going to pull that one out. When you see a number like that, when you see a number that most people would expect to be 6.5, 7 in that weird 4 range, does that motivate you to just step away from Step
No.
away from the tick.
I'll
No,
tell-
okay.
I'll tell you exactly what happens. Number one, professional bettors have this game lined at about 3. Home field advantage in the NFL is generally worth 3 points, which means professional bettors think if this was on a neutral field, it would be a pick. They're giving the Saints the 3 points because it's on home field. The bookmakers made it at 4.5 because bookmakers know that the public perception is the Saints have historically been good. They have a little bit more public favor than the Panthers. Even though they have been without Sean Payton and Drew Brees, they have still been...
Look, it'd be hard to have less public favor than the Panthers.
Right.
Right.
The Saints have still been competitive. The Panthers, the public perception is they are the worst team in the NFL, and they have been a joke of a franchise for the past 2 years. And Bryce Young looks like a fifth grader who is a human bobblehead when he's playing on the field, right? But the public isn't taking into account what everyone else who's paying attention all offseason are taking into account, which is the rosters got better, which is Dennis Allen and Derek Carr in their respective categories as coach and quarterback are 2 of the historically worst against the spread. They are not taking into account that this team, the optimism for this team, according to surveys of every fan base, the Saints have the lowest optimism from their fans, that Dennis Allen has the shortest odds to be the first coach fired. So the wise guys are still seeing that 4.5 and saying, oh, I'm going to hit that. I'm going to take it at 4. And the bookmakers can't go crazy and say it's going to be 6 because they know that, like, if they set it at 6, they are just going to get flooded with tons of big money bets from professional bettors. And then they're going to be lopsided and they can't really afford that. So that's how you end up at a number like 4.5 or 4.
Would you rather bet week 1 or week 5?
Week 5, it's nice to have 4 weeks of data. What I really like doing is betting week 3 because you can still be a week ahead of the market. And you get 2 weeks of games, you start to get a little bit more in terms of tendencies. The enthusiasm for the beginning of the season hasn't worn off. So you still have a lot of people who might still be betting because maybe they won 1 week and lost another week. And so they still have a little bit of money in their pocket and they're not discouraged yet. And so they're willing to go into the market. And bookmakers are going to set lines on certain what we call public teams a little bit higher still. So once you get into week 3, I think there's a little bit more of an advantage. Week 5, all of a sudden, dumb money, for lack of a better term, starts to leave the market. People lose their enthusiasm and lines start to settle a little bit more.
How often do the smartest gamblers watch the NFL?
Well, it depends. Like, everyone's different, right? There are sort of the analytics-leaning bettors who don't watch the games. They ingest all of the data and all of the play-by-play and all the stats from the games. They work it through their model. Their models punch out a number, and then they bet almost blindly what they see on the board the next week, right? Could be, the Bears are 4-point underdogs against the Packers in Chicago. And in that scenario, they know they are going to bet the Bears no matter what. Then there are people who are sort of more naturalistic, for lack of a better term, and they are certainly creating power ratings, and they're looking at different numbers and incorporating them into what their models. Everyone's got a model now. It just used to be you would do it on pen and paper and create your power ratings, in a 3-ring binder. And now everyone's doing it in Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. But a lot of people, they're watching the games. They like to see the flow of the games. They like to see tendencies. They like to see matchups. They like to see who the backup tackle is. That's why a lot of wise guys watch preseason. They want to see who the backup tackle is. So if a first-string tackle goes out, that will have an impact on how people look at games. So there's different ways to do it.
Has anyone ever shown you their model and you looked at it and said, this is just division?
It's funny. No one's ever shown me their model. They will tell me what's in it, but showing me a model would be like me trying to learn Latin, like it wouldn't do anything.
Really?
know,
You would come on. I don't think you like. I understand what you're saying is
yeah,
that there maybe is a separation of understanding the math principles behind it, but like it wouldn't be. I think you'd probably be able to follow the flow of what they were trying to come up with.
yeah, but it's definitely going to be more than division, right? Because you are weighting certain factors differently, and you're making adjustments over the course of the year. I don't want to overinflate their brilliance. I mean, we do this with every industry, and we've especially done it with bettors, with people in finance, people in private equity, where people believe they are leaning into models and algorithms and things that give them a superpower to make decisions and take risk out of the factors in terms of the conversation of how they are making decisions. And I think that it's a little bit dangerous because if your model is still created by a human, so no matter how much historical data you're ingesting, there are still going to be risk factors. So I could not create a model. I would never try to say I could create a model. If I looked at a model, I would say, all right, is this the right weighting? Is this the right way to go? I do think it's interesting that just culturally, I think that we have always ascribed sort of superhero, supernatural power to people who instinctively know how to predict what's going to happen next. And I do think that sort of the model components of this have elevated that because now you think this person is brilliant and they've got an impenetrable formula to winning, which makes people feel, I think, a little bit too safe about some of the financial decisions they make.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you brought that up because I was working on something recently where I was talking about my pursuit of when I got into this. I didn't want to be in the media. I wanted to work in a front office. And I was convinced that there was this lens that was developed that basketball people, baseball people, that they watched the game through this lens that mere mortals couldn't understand. And one of my favorite things about getting older and enough life experience, and even though I've been in sports, like you're just open to a bunch of different industries, is that there's like two different kinds of people here. One person wants you to believe that what they have developed is so incredibly special and so unobtainable because it makes themselves feel better about what they've accomplished, right? Then there's the other person that's like, yeah, you just do it long enough, you start to figure some shit out. And that's what I learned, I think, more so with basketball, is that I was convinced there was this way that you had to learn how to watch that you couldn't understand until you finally accomplished it. That everybody was in charge of rosters, like they all had this secret, they all shared this secret way. And then the reality is if you spend decades watching this one thing over and over and over again, you would hope you would pick it up. In the same way with game. Like if you're putting years, if this is your priority, it may not be some magical formula that the public could never comprehend. It's just that you have to, it kind of defaults back to that 10,000 hour thing here again. But when there's just such a separation of understanding, is you're just like, I can't fathom, like, how do these guys sit there? Like, I'll go to a book, I'll watch everybody in there and I'll think, what are they doing? What is it? And then you realize even the smartest guys, the margins are just like, they're so disciplined. They know when they see a bad number, they're on it. They're adjusting essentially money units, being like, okay, this is a much bigger play. I'm not sitting there trying to hammer this and go 7-3 on 10 games every single week. But yeah, that's something that I feel like I've discovered in my own journey of trying to understand industries I didn't think I understood in the beginning.
Well,
Okay.
What happens is,
yeah,
you develop a natural instinct for what you think is going to work. And you and I both experience this just as members of the media and people who create content where, oh yeah, this segment, I totally get it. I know why it's going to work. I know what makes sense. I know why it's going to resonate with people. I don't need to test it. I don't need to do the market research. I just get it. I know when we start something new at Action, or when we started something new at ESPN, I knew if it was going to resonate or if it wasn't going to resonate. And that's not because there was a ton of data behind it that we did for that specific segment, show, article, new project, whatever, it's because we had done so many of these things before, you sort of naturally get it. When it comes to betting, what's really interesting is you just said you're not going to, go 7-3. The margin is that thin. Like I just said, you win 53% of the time as a bettor. You're one of the best in the world, which also means you're losing 47% of the time. And that's where a lot of these things become complicated for people who are new to betting, for people like you, for people like me who are trying to communicate this, and it can become real conflicting. And me and my co-host on The Favorites just talked about this yesterday. Early in the season, week 1, week 2, you lean into trends a little bit more because you don't have tendencies. You don't have what you've seen on the field yet. You can't sort of play against public perception based on what's really happened. So there are these trends like divisional dogs the last 10 years cover at a 71% clip against the spread, or dogs between 1 and 5.5 points the last 10 years cover at a 60% clip, or favorites between 1 and 3.5 points do not cover.
That's why I love the game 1 in NBA playoffs. Like who came off the series in a game 7, and
right.
then the team that won game 7 loses game 1 against the spread. Like it was an overwhelming number.
Of course.
So you're right. Like, but then there you have last night with Lamar Jackson. You're like he's 12-1-1 all time as a dog against the spread. That number was so absurd. It would scare me to be like, well, I'm just going to be late. I'll just be like,
yeah.
I can't. He's not going to go 13.
But here's the thing with those numbers. The other side of it is you win 4 of those 10 bets. You win 6 if you play the trend, but you win 4 if you don't play the trend. So the idea is you're playing the trend, and like we will give away picks and we will go through our logic, and we're really detailed and we try to be analytical and we try to explain to people the pluses and the minuses and why we're making these decisions. But we also make these decisions every single week, right? We are grinding it out over the course of a season so we can win 15 units, 20 units, and you play those consistently over time. You're going to win those bets. But in a 1-week sample size, you might not. And that's the challenge, I think, and something that you grapple with, certainly something we grapple with as we are communicating this to users is who are especially new to this. We're not a clown show here. Like we're not telling you and like carnival barkers saying, hey, you got to bet it this way this week. Like we don't give away locks. We're just telling you what the percentages are. And if you do that right over time, you're going to find positive ROI.
Like that 900 number you called desperate one weekend in college, and the guy never stops calling you.
Yeah, you know why? Because that 900 number, he's got a recording that is giving away bets saying that he's winning on these. But if you call the same number at a different time, he's got the other side. Like,
oh, I know. No, it was like whatever the pitch was, even if you were so uneducated, you'd be like, this doesn't make any, like, why are you calling me? Why are you calling me if you're 7-0-1 in the last 8 Monday nighters?
Right. Like, why aren't you retired? Why aren't you putting everything you have on this?
But I'll tell you get some roommates there at 18, 19. They're like, this guy's on fire.
We got to bet him. We got to tail this guy.
Sometimes in the simplest form, sometimes it is just fun. I was traveling. It was a UFC main event. I paid a cover charge to go into a place just to watch it, have a couple beers. And I went, you know what? I'm just going to bet the fight because it's going to be a little bit more fun. And sometimes that's kind of lost in the 30 minutes that we're sitting here trying to dissect this. Okay, before we say goodbye.
It's supposed to be fun. It's only supposed to be fun.
Right. Promote the podcast, and then I have another quick follow-up.
Everyone should listen to the Favorites podcast. Me, my co-host, professional bettor, Simon Hunter. By the way, and we go through Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. We review the games that we bet and then preview the early lines for the games coming up in the following week. Right now, we are doing a $100,000 free-to-play pro football pick'em contest. Sign up for free, get a chance to win a cash pool of $100,000. First place gets 40, second place 10, 5 picks a week. You can drop your 2 worst weeks. So if you hear this after week 1, you still got a chance to sign up. Favorites.actionnetwork.com. Go sign up and listen to the Favorites podcast. Thank you.
Okay, give me the smart pick this week then for the audience.
Well, after we've gone through and said we don't give away picks and we're not carnival barkers.
No, but I need one for the exercise. I need, because you can't be, I can't be bugging you every week.
I will say this. I will say I am definitely on the Panthers, 100%. I am definitely on the Colts, 100%. I will be on the Giants. These are disgusting, terrible, gross things. But a game that I do like, you talked about the Rams and the Lions. I love the Lions. And I don't want to. This is what we all grapple with. I want to fade the Lions. I think they're too overhyped. I think that public perception is making everyone believe they are a Super Bowl team, which they could be, but it makes everyone more excited to bet them. But a lot of bettors think about it from the inside out, right? Fundamentals. How good are you on the offensive and defensive line? Forget about the fact that Dan Campbell is the best coach against the spread the past 5 years, that Jared Goff is literally undefeated in week 1 as a quarterback, or that he's 25-9 in indoor games as a quarterback against the spread, right? And when I say undefeated, I mean undefeated against the spread. The Lions' offensive and defensive line are top 5 in the league. And that is fundamentally sound, especially when you're going up against a defensive line that is without Aaron Donald and trying to figure out how to plug those gaps, even though they had really good draft picks the past couple of years, and an offensive line that is still struggling. You're getting a really good team on a really fast track with great talent at home in perfect conditions. So I did bet the Lions, and I'm going to be sweating it on Sunday night.
Okay. But it sounds like we're going Panthers is our submission here. And if we were going public money, public bets, again, being two different things, it seems like most of the public money is on Pittsburgh in Atlanta for week 1, but then the public betting number actually is different on that. So should we go money or betting?
Go with money on that. And the Steelers are a really interesting one too, right? Like the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, the past 20 years, not just best coach against the spread as an underdog, best coach winning outright as an underdog. When this team has TJ Watt on the field, they are a much different team than when they don't. So I think I give the benefit of the doubt to the Steelers and a coach who's been there for a while versus a coach in his first year with a quarterback who's coming off an Achilles tear.
Considering Pittsburgh, 71% of the public money on this one, that means the fade the public play is Atlanta minus 3.5. And I'm just going to go with gut week 1 guy stuff. I'm going to go Giants plus the 1.5 at home against Minnesota. So
why does your gut tell you that?
Just think it's such a garbage number, weird game. People like Darnold probably more than they should. People are super down on the Giants at home week 1. Why not? I just thought it was like the ugliest thing I could see this week.
By the way, you basically just did exactly what professional bettors do.
Well, like I said, try to get better this summer. You lift all those weights for a reason.
Gains, everyday gains.
Hey, no one who was stronger ever was mad they were stronger. Look, man, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for taking the time to do this, and hopefully we can check back in and check our work and see how we're doing a couple times this season if you're cool with it.
Always, brother.
All right. He's the best. Chad Millman. The email address for submissions, get them in. You get something a little different, we're open to it. lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. Checking in with the gang. How is everybody?
Pretty good. Friday, dude. Here
we are. A Friday beer sap for Kyle.
Yeah, you send me something free. It's coming. It will be worn.
I'm also wearing the Russillo hat that I've gotten a lot of requests from people to either a donation to a charity or just straight up how much do you want for it? Are you looking to donate some stuff? I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. I feel like I got to hold on to them. I don't know if I could just start giving these away. They might be waiting another 10 years. Who knows? It could triple in price.
Donation to charity. What is that? Like the the 2008 Patriots Super Bowl T-shirts? Like, what are we talking about? What kind of donation? Like just the proceeds that you from the sale
like, you
goes
know,
to charity? Okay, all right.
I'm not just trying to pocket like the money from fans, like, you know, donate to a charity. But I don't know. I don't feel. I'm not going to start, you know, pawning off stuff that's, you know, basically Ryan's name, image, and likeness over here.
Things are fine. Things are fine. If you want to sell something,
I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to be that guy,
yeah.
but I'm holding on to it. I'm going to hold on to the stuff. Maybe talk to me another couple years.
If somebody said, I'll give you $500 for that hat, you're selling the hat.
Done.
I feel like I have integrity. I wouldn't.
I'll get it signed by Ryan.
Yeah,
dude.
I don't know. I mean, what's the backstory?
Go down to $450.
I don't think I'm going to sell them. I have like 5, and I don't know. You know, it's going to hold for now. See what happens. 500's not enough.
We talked about like doing some sort of like, here's the potpourri of all the leftover stuff. And then somebody said something like, how great would it be if you hung on to it and your grandchildren got to see it? We go, well, fucking, I'm not, grandchildren?
Yeah.
We got to pick up the pace here.
Buddy at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, hi, I'm not that into you, but I have all these shirts.
Yep.
And I want to start a family.
I've got a heart out. So.
Yeah. How do you feel about separate houses? Not because I'm going to cheat on you, but because I just need to be by myself a lot. Let's get started.
October through June. Busy most nights.
Yeah. Do you want to go to Saint-Tropez in July, early August? I'm your guy. We'll take the boat out every now and then. No problem. Do you want to not have to talk to me for a really long time? I can also provide that. All right, let's get to it. Speaking of boats, we had a boat guy chime in who just got upset a little bit about a person complaining about their parents' later in life purchases, especially boats. It's ridiculous. It's something he is doing to make sure you all want to be around and spend time with him as a family. My dad has boats in 3 states. Boat guy alert. 6 of them. 6 boats in 3 states. Captain's a Caribbean one. If you think your dad's boats are pointless, you don't like fun. I think our emailer's coming at this from a very specific angle. Your dad's a boat captain in the Caribbean, which is one of my fallback plans. Right? So that's an entirely like different. He also signed it first made out, which I respect the hell out of. I think the emailer here is right, but specific to the inventory lineup that we had from the previous emailer, it sounds like his dad also likes just buying the stuff quite a bit. But yeah, if the goal is to make sure everybody's around a little bit, maybe our previous emailer was just upset about a lack of storage. You know, he's looking at the square footage part of it, being like, I'm losing square footage by the season here. 6 boats in 3 states. That guy really likes boating. But again, if he's actually captaining boats in the Caribbean, like I would never get another one. Good for you. Catamaran on sale. That's what I've been hearing.
I think that was kind of baked into our answer. It was like, that's why we're like, you know, we're talking, you know, we're using the kid gloves when we quote unquote confront the dad about this, because we're like, he probably does think like, it's like parents talking about, well, maybe we'll get a lake house now that our kids are all grown up. And, you know, my dad's kicking it around, but he's like not a money spender. So it's just the idea of getting a lake house, but then we got to go. We can't be like, why are you buying a lake house? He's like, I want you guys to hang out with us. So I think that's why we're like, you know, approach it nicely. Because we understand.
Okay, question for you. Did we do this one from the girlfriend about the boyfriend's phone?
That's not nearly specific enough for me to remember something.
Let's read it. I remember reading it when it was sent to me and then flagging it and thinking, okay, because it's kind of sucks. I don't really think there's much debate on this one, but we'd like to talk to the female women that chime in. So, hey guys, I've been listening to life advice for a year plus now, and since my boyfriend turned me on to the podcast, I have a question I think is best answered by men and the people that don't know me or my boyfriend. Boyfriend knows us though, so this could get a little dicey. I think it's vague enough though. You guys would remember. I don't know why. I have like a slight August and September gap. I forgot an NFL head coach the other day. I was like, hey, you need to tighten your shit up. All right. We've been together for about 3 years and are currently living together as well. Relationship is normal. Wait, 3 years and living together. Relationship is normal, healthy, loving relationship with regular ups and downs. One thing's been bothering me lately, and that's I feel like he doesn't want me to see his phone and is weird about me going on it. Uh-oh. It's not often that I try to see his phone or go on it, but when I do, he acts strange and wants to take it from me quickly. Something silly like me putting an address in a GPS or looking at a song on Spotify seems to make him nervous. I know the phones are very personal, but should I be worried? Short answer, yes.
Yeah, it's a simple one.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to talk to him about it because it makes me seem super insecure, and that's never a good look. Any advice or thoughts would be much appreciated. Love the pod. You guys are great. This isn't good. It's not good. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, some guys are just so worried about being that guy that they'll just hand you the phone to put in the song, to plug in the address, going like, what are the chances that I'm actually going to get busted on maybe some kind of conversation that I'm having? Look,
Do you
I'm
want to
going to
use
tell you
my
right
phone
now.
to take the picture? It's got a better camera.
Yeah, right. Like people come over your place and you're like, no, why don't you hook up to the Bluetooth? Pick whatever song you want. Look, I'm going to tell you that was seeing someone got back together, first lunch date on the rekindling of the vibes. She immediately turned the phone over on the table. And I went, this isn't going to be good. And it didn't work out. We were always a face-up phone couple. And then it was, I'm turning it over. And I've never gone through someone else's phone. I think it's like one of the ultimate fucking betrayals.
It's lame. Yeah.
I think it's the lamest fucking thing you can do. Especially if you're not like getting married to the person, you know.
But you know what else is lame is being weird about your girlfriend touching your phone.
Who lives with you?
Yeah,
who lives
that's
with
also
you,
pretty
okay?
weird. So
Now look, you want to just play out some scenarios? Maybe he just complains about you a lot. Probably not what you were hoping to hear, but maybe that's it. Maybe he texts inappropriate jokes with his buddies, and that's the only thing. Maybe he is a fraud financially, and you don't know it yet, and he doesn't want to see the E-Trade thing where it's like, is that all the numbers added up, or is that each account? Like, what's going on? Like, I thought you said you had done well. Wait, you have 12 shares of NVIDIA? So, which would be a nice little vacation. You're doing the math on it. I don't know how to tell you this other than this is super alarming. And it's be one thing if it's like, hey, we're 6 months in, he doesn't want to see the phone. Maybe there's a bit of a hangover, bit of the relationship where he's still talking to somebody from his past, but it's not like the really bad stuff where it's clear he's keeping on this sexual relationship through texting. I just think that it's an awful, awful sign that he has that much anxiety about it and you live with him. So I wouldn't go through the phone, okay? But you have to at some point. Maybe you just set it up that way. Maybe it's the drive back after something, but you have to stop thinking about this because that's not normal behavior of somebody that you're expecting to marry. All right?
Yeah, I think I don't really have anything else to say, but to your point, I thought that sometimes to turn the phone over was sort of like, I'm not going to even glance at it while you're telling me this work story or something. Like, I thought it was kind of respectful, but
I think you're right. I think that's a nice scenario, except when you were always phones facing up couple.
Okay.
So like you're just getting back together with somebody. It's a
Yeah.
little tense. You're not really sure who has the upper hand. Don't know why I was going to pronounce word that way, but
that Europe trip.
Yeah.
I don't really understand about the phone up thing, phone down thing. It wouldn't really bother me. Unless you're one of those people, like, do you have the thing where it says the texts, it's like a preview of what the text is so you can see what the actual,
If he's
stuff
fucking
is?
around, he wouldn't
Or
have
just
that.
say like
no.
so-and-so texted you. Because like, I don't know.
Let's not get bogged down in what that is. Okay. That was very specific to me.
Yeah,
It
right.
was a very long time ago.
fair.
I knew the difference. Okay. I knew the difference.
Did you call
I
out
knew
on
it was a bad sign. I just was like, we're fucked. Like,
You knew it was dead. Yeah.
and soon thereafter, it did not work.
I
Okay?
wonder.
Sometimes.
So this is much more
Flight home from
serious.
San
This is
Diego.
Right. This is a really big deal because the emailer here feels the shitty about it. And think about where her head is at. Again, we can only hear her side of the story, but based on this, she's such a sweet person that she has more anxiety about actually figuring out a way to ask about this as opposed to assuming all the worst, which now she's going to do after listening to this email. But I just think what's the other side of this? Like, hey, maybe it's one of those weird, don't worry about it things. Maybe he's talking about getting you an engagement ring with his sister or whatever, but yeah, right. Ceruti.
You know what's weird about it though?
Of doubt.
You know what I hate the most about this is the emailer seems like a good, nice person who's trying to like not be
Seems
bad
like
about it.
Not
Yeah.
think the
When
worst.
she's saying, oh, I don't want to be, act like I'm going through stuff or being too overbearing. when it's totally within your right to be like, dude, why are you being so weird with your phone? Like, you're being weird with your phone. Like, clearly you've noticed it. It is a weird act. And she's like trying to make excuses for why she shouldn't think it's weird or shouldn't act upon or ask him about it when it's totally normal to be like, why are you being weird with your phone? And so I personally, I mean, you know, again, like, what's the end game here? Like, are you willing to, you know, ask a question that you don't want to know the answer to? Because if you start kind of barking up that tree, maybe some stuff that you're not going to like is going to come out. But I'd want to know, and I think it's totally within your right to be like, what's going on here? You've been weird with your phone for however many months, and it's not normal.
Yeah, I think the observation, I think you nailed it, where it's like just the straight up observation announcement. Like, hey, I'm just noticing you're being sketchy all the time now. And you're the person I'm with the most, and you're sketchy all the time because your phone's always on you. So I think that's perfectly within your right to say it's all on the table. You're not snooping. You don't have to, you know, feel bad about that stuff. The one thing I was wondering is like, maybe like, you know, some kids like weren't allowed to have TVs in their house or something like that. And like, you know, my brother had a girlfriend like that. She'd come over and like, it was just like TV time at our house because like we're like, wait, so you go home and your parents just said that we don't do TV. It's not allowed. And it's like, you know, the mid 2000s or something. Maybe this was a guy whose like parents was like, you can have a cell phone, but I'm checking it every day. And maybe he's like got PTSD from it. Just because he's a listener, I want it to not be the worst thing, but there's a ton of smoke here. So there's probably fire. But just thought maybe he had a weird upbringing and his parents were like, you know, maybe he didn't have a door on his bedroom and they were checking his phone, checking his AIM every day. I don't know.
It's making you feel this way. Okay.
Yes.
So that's ultimately on him. And I think Ceruti's advice was actually the best advice, is that you need to figure out a way. The advice is figure out a way to get to that entry point. It sounds like he's so weird about it so often. There's going to be plenty of opportunities. Maybe it's not on the ride up to San Francisco on a 3-day weekend, stopping in wine country. Maybe it is the next time you're at the house, you're both there and you're just like, okay, hey, you're being weird about this again. And you just start it that way. Be like, what is the issue with you and the phone? And you're going to, if you know him this well and you've been dating him for 3 years, you've been living with him, you're probably going to be able to figure out if he's full of shit or not, you know?
And the good news is that, you know, you live together. So it's not like when you're together, you're like doing something. It's not like, oh, you had to do this on the way to the wine bar. What the hell? But like, you know, you guys are home all the time. So there's a lot of entry points there.
Okay. A lot of entry points. What else do we have here? Okay. Moving cross country. 6'2", 180. Jeff Hornacek from my 8th grade squad. I'll get right to it. My wife and I just had our first child. Congrats. 8-month-old daughter who's incredible. No dad strength. We're holding her yet, Ceruti. So we're tracking that. Where were you on that again?
You know, now that she's about 27-ish pounds now. And so it's not, it wasn't when she was a baby. It's really more now that she's like a toddler, because she's heavy, man. But now I'm not like really carrying her for like long distances anywhere, but it's way more now than it was when she was a baby. The baby was easy. She was like, you know, 7, 8 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever. Now I'll report back in a few months, because I do feel like, you know, I'm not saying there's like,
are you switching arms?
Anything.
Are you switching arms just to keep it even?
I'm a righty, but I'm a hold the baby in the left arm guy. I don't know why. Maybe that's a normal thing.
So if you did free throw shooting contests, you would shoot them right-handed because you hold your baby left-handed?
I'm just gonna leave that there. Anyway, no realized gains yet, but I will say I'll report back. I do feel stronger.
I want that to happen. I want Ceruti to be in an offhand free throw shooting contest, and he just tells all of his teammates on Team USA, and he's like, "What? I hold my baby left-handed. What's the issue here? I won." Okay. All right. Good on that. Maybe we could have tracked that a little bit better. We could have done some strength agility stuff. But then if you stayed with the routine, you could have just gotten stronger for the routine and then not the baby. And then the science is all wrong. And, you know, next thing you know, Harvard Medical Review is writing a piece on it. And you're like, oh my God, you guys didn't have a control, which would be terrible in that community. All right. So we have a really nice, how embarrassing. Have a really nice house in a suburb outside of a big city in the South. Both have great jobs. She's an operations manager at a large chemical company and I'm a project manager at an engineering firm. Sounds like a real adult crew here. Yeah. My dad and my brother, his family live about 45 minutes from us, and maybe it was wishful thinking, but we were hoping they would have been a bigger help with our new daughter. Through the first 8 months, they visited once so far, and we end up having to make the drive if we want to hang out. On the other hand, her parents live in the Midwest, have been incredible. They've flown down 5 or 6 times already, been a huge help. Because of that, my wife is wanting to move back home or really just get out of where we are, and we've had many discussions on the pros and cons. Sounds like we have a lot in both columns. Do we move back to a smaller Midwest town to be close to her family? It would probably be a suburb outside of Chicago. Number 2, though, we love hiking, backpacking. So we've talked about going somewhere, Denver, Seattle, California, knowing we'd be by zero family. But I'd love for my daughter to grow up in the outdoors. My wife and I have to find new jobs, but I think our experience should be fine. I'm currently working 3 days a week from home, so I'm optimistic I could parlay that into a full remote if we decided to move. It's daunting to think about finding new jobs and new living arrangements, especially halfway across the country, but we have some good friends and we'd be leaving behind. Sorry for the long email. Not a long email. Pretty straightforward. Look, your side of the family not helping out is certainly a bummer. I mean, Ceruti, you have a lot of help. Do you think of, and part of it's just the adaptation, I should say, excuse me, the adaptation of like what your opportunities or what your resources are, right? In this case, like you have a lot of help. If you removed yourself from that, like what if I moved to California and we had no family help? Like how would I even do this? Well, you would just do it, right? You would actually just do it. But man, it must be really nice having so much help the way you do right now, which is why, it's tough to tell people to not do it. So why don't you answer this one before I throw my theories in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out him moving to like Denver or Texas or California, whatever, to be outside. You can go outside anywhere, man. Like there's cool stuff in the Northeast. Like there's probably cool stuff
upstate New York.
There's cool stuff in Chicago, like in the suburbs. I'd imagine there's a lake. There's a big lake around there. It's probably pretty fun. So anyway, just
Western Mass, February,
yeah,
fucking killer.
Beautiful, yeah, amazing. Yeah, so
trails are empty.
My parents live about a couple hours away. I get the annoying part there is like they always want to FaceTime and I hate FaceTiming. So that's kind of like, it'd almost be easier if they were closer because they could just like come over and like, I don't know, just that personally annoys me, even though I realize that I'm very grateful and should be grateful to have that. No, but it's like, hey, can we FaceTime? Can we every day? And it's like the same conversation over. I love my parents. They're great. Obviously they help out a ton. Ryan's met my dad a bunch of times. Mr. Fix-It, Joe Ceruti. But
could be more helpful.
It's like you just do the talk on the phone.
I wish you were my dad. No, I'm just kidding.
Fair enough. Listen, I'm a lucky guy.
No. Everybody knows how much I love my dad. I could not say it at the time.
My dad, not as good as a basketball player as your dad, unfortunately, but we all have our pros and cons. But yeah, like it's, it drastically changes like my happiness and my mood. I
want my dad back. Sorry. It was
all right, you thought about it. Good.
Yeah, the basketball is clincher.
Yeah. My mood would be drastically different. I feel like me as a parent would be drastically different if I didn't have any help. We talk about this with daycare. We talk about this with my parents coming over, her parents coming over. Like you need to do stuff. Like we still do stuff. We go out to dinner. We, go to concerts. And if we didn't have people around and we didn't know anybody, it's just kind of tough to leave her with strangers or even just like other daycare parents who you don't really know. So we probably would do less and my life would be more miserable. So, I don't know. Like it is kind of an awkward situation too, because then it's like it's your parents versus the in-laws, and like there's always kind of like a little tug of war there too of like who gets more credit or who I don't know who's the better situation to be around. That could create some arguments, but I would want the help. I'd want a situation where I had help, and when I wanted to go out or had to do something, or like we do a live show and I got to leave, and Maddie wants to come with me, like we could leave the kid with our parents for a weekend. Like that to me like makes me a better parent and makes me a better person. So I would personally advocate for that.
It sounds like you've got like, I think parents when they get older, even family members like grandparents especially, like they kind of fall into two camps. It's either like, how can I help? Like, when are you free? When can I drop in? And the other one is like, you haven't come to see me in a while. You know what I mean? It's like Livia Soprano, and it's just like, I talked to Gladys, and her son calls her twice a week, and it's just like I'm not doing it. You come to me. Now is the time when you take care of me. And it sounds like that's kind of where your parents are. Not to like talk bad about them. They just view things differently. It's like, all right, we're done. We're aging. Now you come check on us and you bring us the grandkids. And then if you don't, then we'll say we haven't seen them in a while. What's going on? Even though it's, 40 minutes away. So I think that's just the kind of family you have. And it sounds like your brother's just is down to take the same path when it's like, yeah, dude, when you're going over mom and dad's, let me know. We'll pop over. But, I think for me, family matters. It would matter. And maybe you try the wife's. Suburbs of Chicago. Great show. The suburbs of Chicago sounds fine to me. Honestly, it really does. And
it does.
Like you said, like anywhere that's not a city, there's tons of outside. Like, so you have to drive 20 minutes to hike. Big deal. Like it's half the distance to your parents' house now. So if it was me, I would try to stay somewhere close to family. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with staying put either, to be honest. Like, you got friends and stuff like that, and you're close to one side of the family, are you going to use all your free time to go see these people around the world? I mean, at least would you be using all your free time to go see your family who doesn't go anywhere to meet you halfway? So I don't know. I would probably stay put.
It sounds like the wife, she would want the help in this situation. She's the one pushing for the move to outside Chicago, and if she wants that to happen,
sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think your hands are kind of tied there. I think I think there's upside there. That's what I would say.
And it's like cooler than moving just nothing, because you'll meet friends through your kids' parents, right? It's not like, hey, we both work remote and we're gonna.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, because no, if you moved to Colorado and didn't know anybody, that's a pretty drastic change with a kid, because then it's just kind of the three of you, and it's really isolating. Like I need
call my buddy Mark.
Yeah, look at what's up, Mark. I would need to see and talk to people that I already know. Like I'm, maybe you're like a social butterfly and you're easy at making friends and it'll be fine and whatever. You'll start hanging out with people. But I don't know. I like to see the people that I've known for a while and at least be around some of them, or at least accessible to some of them. If you move somewhere random with a kid, that adds more stress to your life that I don't know that you need.
Side note: Russillo had a great Colorado crew. I don't know how many of those dudes were local, but what a time!
Great Colorado crew.
Good group.
I mean, roll deep.
Yeah, there's like 9 of you guys.
Well, 9 that stayed out on a school night. But I think there was like 20 guys local that showed up to the show. Good turnout. I mean, that was almost the tiebreaker between Friendship and Ocean. Ocean won.
It was close though.
No, I actually thought about post Connecticut. I go, okay, if it's not Manhattan Beach, what's number 2? And I was like, it's Denver. But I had some other goals. That were not going to be at that time fulfilled in Denver. But it was like, hey, this might be fun. You can have friends. You can have somebody to call Friday. No offense to Kyle, it's traffic. He knows the deal. By the way, Family Matters. Family Matters, 9 seasons on the air.
Wow,
that's a good run.
Television. I'd say deservedly.
Yeah. What's our number 1 rule about Chicago? If you marry a girl from Chicago, you have to move back to Chicago. So I think we have to factor that in. The doing stuff outside suburbs of Chicago. Have you guys been there? That's not a long window. It's not a long window. It's tough. Those are some tough seasons. So if you're really about the outdoors, look, it sounds like the family side on your part isn't enough to keep you there. If it actually is that flexible for you to find these other job opportunities, I'm all in favor of moving. I think you become, I don't know if it's a better person, but with the experience, you're just going to gain things from it. There are going to be valuable parts of your life from that move that are going to make you appreciate when you go back, which I've always told every single young person that ever suggests, should I move, in an email? I'm like, yeah, move. You're young. Who cares? The good thing here is your daughter is so young. It's not like you're ripping her out of school. And say you go to the greater Colorado area, which I'm a huge fan of. Denver itself is kind of being stretched at the seams, even though there's still some great surrounding neighborhoods. The city is just, it was not designed to have this many people live there, and it's very different. Like each year I go, I'm like, man, this place is really, really having a hard time maintaining this population spike that they've had. And I don't know the latest numbers, but it was a significant spike over a while. I like where your head's at. Like, hey, is there a way to kind of get 8 to 9 months? Because that's the other thing. Denver's weather is one of the more misunderstood climates in the United States too, because there's just way more opportunity to do stuff outside longer throughout the year. If you know, you know. So you wouldn't be like disrupting your family in the sense that if you had a kid who were like 7 and 5, it's like, all right, now we're moving to this other place. Because then you could decide, okay, we like this and we got her out, but now maybe we do want to be back. I think this is now the time for you to be able to pull this off with the correction of likely not going back to where you're living now because you don't feel like it's that much support. And then potentially going to the suburb of Chicago, where some of the stuff that you think you're going to be doing as you keep growing your family, you're probably not going to have that much free time to do in the first place. But then it can, again, circle back around to friendship. Because how many emailers do we have here every month? They're like, move to a new town. Don't know how to meet anybody. I sometimes replaying, and I think you should do this without sitting there on your couch by yourself having constant regrets. I wonder, like, hey, if I had prioritized friends and being around friends, like how differently would have things played out? And for my specific industry, you wouldn't know who the fuck I was. Okay. If I prioritized it, none of this ever happens. but it doesn't mean it doesn't bum me out sometimes. And I think about like even the Denver thing is real reminiscent. I was like, yeah, who knows? Like maybe that would have been awesome. And if it were just podcasting and I were at this point, now I could just move wherever I want. But look, this isn't about me. It's about this hell of a little daughter here who's apparently one side of the in-laws have no interest in. Which sucks. How could you not want to see a kid?
Well, I would like to know
you
what
said
they're,
it, buddy.
Kyle, you mentioned Kyle. Like, I wonder what their situation is. Are they way older? Are they retired yet? I don't know. Maybe their situation isn't just as flexible.
This
as the other
happens
ones.
though. It happens.
It's
a
an
lot.
outlook on life. I think they're just maybe their parents were just like you come pay tribute to us. We're not going to we don't care if you've got a show you want to go to. It really doesn't matter. You come see me, and maybe that's how they are.
Imagine how bored you're going to be, Kyle, at like 75.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Well,
I'm already
I don't know. Maybe he's got
bummed
6
out
boats. Maybe his dad's got 6 boats in 3 states. I don't know. Maybe
I'll be on St.
maybe you're
Mark's
cramping
with
his style,
fucking-
dude.
Just going like, yeah, no, Chris Berman was cool. I didn't interact with him a lot though. So anyway, you have a yellowfin tuna to start. Anyway, yeah. Like we're not married, but I met her online. She's like 38. I don't really know what the deal is. We're trying to get her papers in order. Okay. I think that's enough for today.
Yeah. Good by me.
Didn't watch Family Matters, Kyle?
Totally watch Family Matters.
Yeah,
I think Carl Winslow is one of the top TV dads. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lock. I've never talked to you about it. There's no way me knowing you would think that you didn't know Family Matters inside and out.
Yeah.
Okay, that's enough for today. Thanks to Mike Wargon. Thanks to Ceruti, who people still think it's 2 words.
Yep.
And to Kyle. Check out our YouTube page. And always subscribe to the Ryen Russillo podcast. We're in your spot. The Alliance missed it by that much.
Sorry,
week
guys.
1. It's all right. It happens. One week, one of us will always, well, except for the weeks we win. But there usually would be somebody to blame there.
Sucks it had to be LSU too, but yeah.
It sucks that for 24 hours, we're like, all right, 3-0 start on this one. And then it just goes the wrong way, even with the alt spread. But Kyle, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Felt good about it in the building. Was there, was excited, and then I wasn't at the end. So, Kyle, do you want to go first? Switch it up?
Yep. Still going vibes. You're not going to get me to spend my whole Saturday watching football as well as Sunday. So sorry about that. But if you guys know me, you know I've been really into, but here's
Can't
my
name one guy. -7.5.
If you guys know me, you know I've really thrown myself back into the college basketball space over the last couple years. And I really didn't want to bet against NC State because I do love their big boy, DJ Burns. And they did. I think they made him the Alpha Wolf starter, if you guys know what that is for the football team. So I don't want to go against them, but I can't pick for them. So I'm going to take the adjusted under in this game, 64.5. That way I'm not going for, I'm not going against, but it's just vibes.
Okay.
Versus Tennessee.
I'll just jump in here. I'm wondering, look, Tennessee, as we talked about with Spears, demolishing an outman team. Like, what did you really learn? NC State in their opener against an inferior opponent took until the 4th quarter to wake up, and wake up they did. It wasn't some crazy turnover thing that separated. They did outgain them, but it was one of those games where I'm like, is there any way we can get ahead of Tennessee spreads being bigger and then this number not being as big because there's still a thought that NC State is a preseason ranked team and one of the dark horses in the ACC. So look, that's what I'm going with here, but I'm going alt line because as Ceruti points out, we're trying to put these picks together to pay out at plus 400. So since it's a 4 leg this season, as opposed to, well, we did 4 last year and then 3, I think the year before that. The line on FanDuel right now is Tennessee -9.5 at NC State, but we're going to move that down to -6.5. Correct, Ceruti? So just update us on what the number is by the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just to get under a touchdown. So that's fair.
Okay.
All right, Wargon, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I'm looking at Clemson App State. I think Clemson looked pretty bad last week, but I think everyone's going to kind of look bad against Georgia. So Death Valley night game. I like Clemson to bounce back, but App State getting 17. Their last 8 games against Power 5 opponents, all 1-score games, and 17 is just a big number. So we look at the alt line, we can get 21.5 -188. I just like App State to kind of keep this close and stay within that number.
That's what research looks like.
I love that.
Sorry, you're
Yeah.
never going to get that from me, fellas.
Yeah. That was.
What's
He is research.
What's the number on that Wargon too? What was it? Plus
Plus 21.5.
21.5. Okay. All right. Looks good. I'm going to close it out. This is kind of weird because
the original number though just is minus 16.5 on the open, right? And you're moving it up.
Oh, I thought it was minus 17. It might have moved.
Okay. No, it's fine. Look,
Yeah.
you probably find it at 16.5, 17, wherever
Sure.
you want to look for it. But I just want to double check that.
Well, speaking of moving, when I was looking earlier, Oregon was a 21.5 point favorite against Boise State at home. And since, in like the 2 hours since I looked at that, and now we're actually recording this segment, it's moved 2 points less, and it's now 18.5, which I guess is good news because now I can get this as an alt spread of minus 13.5 under minus 200. That's minus 194. So I don't know why it would have moved down 2 points in the 2 hours that we're talking and whether or not that should be a red flag. But I love Dylan Gabriel, and I feel like Boise State gave up a ton of points to Georgia, Southern last week, and Oregon's going to score. So I'm going to take the alt spread here, minus 13.5, Oregon to beat Boise State at home. And so if you pair all those together, that's 4 legs. That gets us to plus 453, guys. Decent payout.
Let's get it.
Right on the money.
All right. That's good. And we'll keep track of individual standings
We don't
or
have
a
to.
contest that we will never follow through.